Good afternoon, and welcome to the third episode of Sable State of Mind. I'm your host, Alex Sable, and I do want to start off this episode to apologize that I was not able to drop an episode last week. I was sick all week, and now I'm back. I feel better than ever, and I am ready to conquer this week. So we have a lot to talk about because I did end up going to one of the Giants training camps. I unfortunately couldn't make it to the other one because I was sick, but I was still able to make it to a week ago, which was last Sunday. And a lot of things have happened. The public already has seen the Giants practice for 9 practices, and practices are closed to the public already, which is crazy how fast it's coming. We are 5 weeks away from opening night, from Sunday Night Football against the Dallas Cowboys. The excitement is real. So we have a lot of things to talk about regards to practice and some of the signings. Some things might be a little late, but I also want to just talk about it because I was supposed to talk about it last week. So this episode might be a little longer than others, but I'm excited. So let's start off with Saquon Barkley showing up to practice. This is huge for the New York Giants. He agreed on a 1-year deal worth up to $11 million with a $2 million signing bonus, regards of incentives, which all the incentives ask him to make the playoffs for those to happen. So, which is very interesting. But Saquon, met with the media regards of, his practicing and showing up for the team. And he said he had to follow his heart and to follow, what his family and him spoke about, which is showing up for the team, playing for the team, and playing for the sport that he loves. This goes back to the first two episodes that I spoke about. He really cares about his football character, and he already was getting backlash for possibly not showing up to camp. He didn't even last one camp without showing up. That just shows the type of character that Saquon is. From day one, I love Saquon. I always will love Saquon, and will always want Saquon to be a New York Giant for life. The one thing for sure that Saquon type like during his interview that he went over is saying that he always wants to be a Giant for life. But what we got out of it is that maybe Joe Schoen and maybe John Mara didn't really show that back to him as much as they stated it to the media that they wanted him for a Giant for life, but maybe Saquon didn't feel that way. But again, Saquon said he followed his heart and he has shown up to practice, and he has shown up to practice as well. Because he could just show up and not really care as much and not going as hard as he wants to, but he is going hard since the first practice, making one-handed grabs, hitting people. He's ready for this football season, and I think he is ready to prove to Joe Schoen and the Giants and to all the running backs that he is a man on a mission this year, and he's going to prove it. And I'm so happy that he's going to be a New York Giant for at least this year. For next year, we will see what happens. We'll get to that, in a few months. So another signing that the Giants did and Joe Schoen locked up was Andrew Thomas. So Andrew Thomas, 5 years, $117 million. He is by far the best left tackle in the league, if not the second best. And he didn't even make it the top 100 NFL list. Let's not even get started with that one. So his cap hit this year is only $9 million. Joe Schoen has now locked up Daniel Jones 4 years for $160 million. Andrew Thomas 5 years, $117 million, and Dexter Lawrence 4 years, $90 million. And then on top of this, Saquon Barkley, the 1 year worth up to $11 million. Most likely still the $10.1 million franchise tag. So Joe Schoen has secured three of the most important positions for years to come. And then we have a lot of cap room for next year. So the cap hell that we have been in with Dave Gettleman, Joe Schoen has manifested this perfectly. So some things that we could talk about regards of training camp. Regards of now 9 training camps have been done since the episodes I've dropped. Darren Waller He looks nasty out there. And I saw him in person. His strides are huge and he's super fast. And the one crazy thing the Giants have been doing for the last few practices, usually in practices, they split up, wide receivers go to wide receivers, running backs go to running backs, defensive line go to defensive line. But Darren Waller, the last three practices have been lining up with the wide receivers and the wide receivers only. So Daniel Bellinger, Cager, the tight ends have been practicing by themselves, and Waller's been with the wide receivers the last three practices, which is really interesting. And they are lining up a lot of 12 personnel. Daniel Bellinger is making tough catches. He's blocking. It's really hard to judge without a lot of pads on, but there has been a total of 2 practices with full pads. And unfortunately, Evan Neal is in concussion protocol. So we probably won't see him for joint practices this week with the Lions and the preseason game. Evan Neal is obviously the key for this Giants offense to succeed. He had a really rough rookie year, really rough. He was battling an injury, which came out after the season, but even during the practices last year, Evan Neal did not look good. And Evan Neal worked on his craft in the offseason, and he is determined to prove the New York media that he is worth the first round pick that he came in. So let's see if Evan Neal is able to be ready for week 1 after this concussion protocol that happened during the 5th practice this season. So a lot of things to talk about regards of the wide receivers. Cole Beasley, he's getting some first team reps, especially with Wan'Dale Robinson, being on the pub and Sterling Shepard being activated off the pub list already so quick. This kid is so resilient. He comes out of the practices with these injuries so quick compared to some of these athletes that suffer these horrific injuries year in and year out. And Sterling Shepard is the best of the best. He's the best locker room guy the Giants have, and he's been in the locker room the longest, right behind Saquon and Daniel Jones. He's been there since 2016, so a long time. So some things to talk about regards to the wide receivers. Jalen Hyatt, the rookie, he is already finding his place in training camp, which is great to see. His speed is killing our defenders, which could be a negative thing or a bad thing, but you can't really judge it too much in practice until the real preseason or games really start. But Jalen Hyatt looks like the guy that the Giants drafted him and went up to get him. His speed and Daniel Jones have been working on and off after practice to understand each other's throws and their speed of one another. And it is connecting during practice. And he is already connected to 4 touchdowns in the practice already. So to break it down, so throughout the 9 practices during the 11-on-11s, Daniel Jones has targeted Darren Waller 19 times, Saquon Barkley 15 times, Darius Slayton 14 times, Paris Campbell 12 times, Isaiah Hodgins 8 times, Daniel Bellinger 6 times, Cole Beasley 5, Jalen Hyatt 4 times, and Sterling Shepard twice. So as you see on the top of the list, Darren Waller is his new favorite shiny toy. And we got to keep him up with bubble wrap because I do not want him injured before week 1 or even before the season even starts. Darren Waller has shown already that he is a threat in practice, and no one can guard him. He is open regardless, and he catches everything and anything that's in front of him. Saquon Barkley, easy for checkdowns. Obviously, that's why he has 15 catches as of right now. And then Darius Slayton still up on that board, even with Paris Campbell, Isaiah Hodgins, Cole Beasley, Jalen Hyatt. Darius Slayton still racking up those catches for Daniel Jones. And he's always been Daniel Jones's favorite receiver to throw to all these years. He's reliable. He stays healthy. Yes, he has some key drops or key moments, but he is still one of the fastest receivers on the team. And one of the things that Joe Schoen and Brian Dable want to focus on this year, and they've stated it multiple times, is speed. Yes, we may not have the biggest shiny DeAndre Hopkins or AJ Brown, but we have a lot of speedy receivers, and they want to make sure these speedy receivers get open quick and get open often. And the plays that they're running with Mike Kafka, he was he was the Kansas City Chiefs offensive coordinator before he came to the Giants. And we all know how the Kansas City Chiefs are run on the offense. They run these crazy plays that confuses defenses all the time. And the Giants are bringing that stuff over here. And it's a lot of with speedy receivers. So with the Paris Campbells, with the Cole Beasleys, who are very quick on the slot, Sterling Shepherds, and now you're adding Jalen Hyatt, a rookie, and he's a deep threat on top of it. Once this kid starts picking up, I'm telling you, he's a sleeper for this year. I'm very excited for Jalen Hyatt. I think he's already starting with some of the ones already, and he's picked up the playbook very easily compared to a lot of receivers that have been on this team for many years. So to see the work ethic that he's already put in for the season is great to see. And I am so excited to see the ceiling just for him alone this season to see what he reaches. So another huge story to really talk about that is pretty like no one saw coming at all is Trey Hawkins, a 6th-round pick for the New York Giants this year as a quarterback, and he is outplaying the top corners on the New York Giants, and he is earning first team reps for the last 4 or 5 practices. And Brian Dable, Joe Schoen are very excited and happy to see that Trey Hawkins is this possible great signing that they may have. And he is outperforming out of all the defenders on the entire defense besides Dexter Lawrence. He looks like the best defender on the defense right now, which is great. And he is defended against the 1s, the 2s, and the 3s, and he is locking every receiver down. So he is somebody I am watching during this first week preseason game against the Detroit Lions, because he is locking up a lot of receivers on the Giants. So let's see what happens with him, because he is very impressive. And this hype around him right now behind the locker room is pretty real. The first couple days, we judge it, but now it's consistently. He's starting with the 1s, and now he is the starting cornerback. And they're having Jackson move down to the slot. So we'll see what happens, but this could be a great story that's going to develop throughout the season. If he stays healthy, this could be a huge sneaky signing the Giants got in the 6th-round pick this year. So Deonte Banks, obviously he was the 1st-round pick this year. He was the cornerback. He's still on the outside. He's been playing on the outside with Trey Hawkins, and Jackson, like I just said, has been moved into the slot as of right now. That might just be to keep Jackson out of, make sure he stays healthy for the season and just keep him prepared. Or it may be something that they did want to exercise, because that Brian Dable has stated and Wink that they want to try Trey Hawkins on the outside, because again, he's locking up these receivers in practice and looking very impressive. So this hype is really real. So I'm so excited to see how this kid plays out during the preseason and then going into the regular season. And let's see what happens. So Deonte Banks, he's having his rookie struggles, but throughout the first couple practices, it was pretty rough. He was getting beat pretty bad, but beat early on off the first steps. But the later the last practices, he has been targeted less. So this goes back to the last episode where last year Daniel Jones, Brian Dable didn't really understand or know Daniel Jones yet. Neither did Joe Schoen. So Wink threw all these blitzes. So reports came out that Brian Dable told Wink the plays that they're going to be running during practice and basically to send the house to Daniel Jones to make him feel uncomfortable and to really understand who Daniel Jones is. So the practices last year were really rough to watch as fans in the offensive side because the offense could not run anything because the defense was in his face all the time. And Daniel Jones looked flustered, but it was on purpose that it came out now. So reports are coming out that Brian Dable is purposely obviously targeting Deontay Banks and seeing what we have in him. So obviously he's targeted a lot throughout the first couple practices, and it doesn't look too good right now. But again, the quarterback position is the hardest position to transfer from college to the NFL. And we have seen plenty of first round busts, unfortunately, with cornerback positions as the highest spot. So nowhere near the panic button and nowhere near the bust button yet either. Very early on, he hasn't even played a first preseason game, but he has obviously struggled through the first half, but has got better through the second half, which is showing promise. This goes off to back to Evan Neal, as last year Evan Neal struggled throughout the entire camp and looked like he was really struggling on that second step and second push that he had to get off the offensive line. But now Evan Neal is working on the second-hand placements. He's worked on the offseason, but that also transferred into the season where he didn't look as good during the practices, and that dragged into the season, and it was the same exact issues. So hopefully, with Deontay Banks stepping up in the second half of practices and getting targeted a lot less is a good sign. So again, it all comes down to the first preseason games. We'll see how this goes in week one, especially with this joint practice with the Detroit Lions. It's just good to have that different type of players and not going after the same offense every single day. Having that different, receivers is going to be good for him. And he's young. And again, it's the hardest position to transfer from college to the NFL. So it's something to keep an eye out on, but we'll see what happens throughout these next couple of weeks. We still have a lot of camp left and 5 weeks to go. So we'll see what happens. So with Neal being out with a concussion, the starting offensive line has been Andrew Thomas as left tackle. Left guard is Josh Azudu. Left guard center has been John Michael Schmitz. And then right guard Mike Glowinski and right tackle Matt Pert. So we'll see how this offensive line works. They've been switching in and out of players. John Michael Schmitz has finally earned looks like he's earning his starting center spot, which should be for him, at least. And he's earning pretty good snaps. I mean, he's going against Dexter Lawrence and Leonard Williams every single day in practice. And Dexter Lawrence is probably one of the best defensive linemen in the league. And he's shown that last year, especially getting paid this year. So he's a hefty man to block every single play. So he's learning from the best. So obviously the first couple snaps with pads, John Michael Schmitz, got his handful, and it was meant to be that way. It's not going to be, yes, if he shut down Dexter Lawrence, yes, that would be good. But also it would be concerning on Dexter Lawrence's part, getting shut down by a rookie already. So with Dexter Lawrence manhandling him, it's normal off the first couple snaps. But John Michael Schmitz has great feet and great hand placements right off the snap. You could tell. Daniel Jones and him did have a drop snap during one of the practices, and they worked after practice that day, working on the snaps, working under center, just to make sure everything is going well, especially for the seasons are right around the corner. And John Michael Schmitz is a very smart kid. He loves football. He even says once he puts these pads on, a different human comes out of him. So we'll see what happens. I'm very excited to see this kid develop and see his first NFL snaps during this week, during the preseason game with the Detroit Lions, and especially this joint practice. This is going to be very interesting to see what happens. So regards of any training camp concerns, we'll have to keep an eye out for Evan Neal regards of his concussion, but a lot of things are still working in place. But Daniel Jones has looked phenomenal during this camp, phenomenal. And that could be a lot of just having a lot of new shiny toys to throw to, actual shiny toys to throw to, because this is the first time in Daniel Jones's career that he actually has some sort of weapons to throw to in the offense besides Saquon Barkley. Now he has like a Jalen Hyatt, a Cole Beasley, which Cole Beasley is looking pretty good too, working after practice with Daniel Jones. And Cole Beasley is a sneaky signing that might be used in the red zone purposes. And going against his old team week one, it's perfect. So we'll see what happens. But Daniel Jones, I'm expecting big things this year. Big things. And I'm saying it here first. I'm expecting top 10 quarterback throws this year. Big, deep ball throws, bigger plays, and better decision making. And he's shown that last year, but now this time he has weapons to prove it. So all these Daniel Jones haters are going to be very quiet this year. And I really think Daniel Jones is really going to show out this year and show that he was worth the money that he was paid during this offseason. I was not a big Daniel Jones supporter at first, but he has earned my respect. And after last year, he's earned my respect tremendously. So I'm excited to see the growth of Daniel Jones this year, the second year in the system, and the second year with the same playbook. He's very confident and he knows what he's talking about and knows what he's running now. So this is going to be a strong year for him. So let's see what happens with him. But I think it's going to be a massive year for him. And I think he's going to strike some noise in the league in a good way. And the media is not going to be able to handle it because they were always hating on Daniel Jones, and that's all they know how to do. So let's see what happens. But that's all for this episode. What's coming up on this week is the Detroit Lions. We got our first preseason game on the 11th. So exciting. I am so excited to break down the film and watch some of these rookies and these players finally play some football. And then we have some joint practices this week. So I am so excited to see what happens and how these players develop throughout these joint practices and finally start hitting other players besides themselves. So I most likely will be dropping an episode on next Sunday regards of the game and the joint practice and overall practice this week. So please like and subscribe, and thank you so much for watching my video.